Speaking to me now is the former super middleweight champion of the world, Robin Reid. Rob, can you just tell us why you're in the O2 Arena in London today?
Yeah, I'm part of the commentary team for BKB. I've done quite a few shows now. I was introduced into it about 2 years ago. Was my first show, just as a guest. Frank Bruno was there, some other boxing celebrities. I'm not saying I'm a boxing great, but boxing greats were there. And I loved it, and the guys, Jim, Joe asked me would I be interested in, being part of the commentary team, joining Tom and doing the commentary, and off we went, and enjoying every minute of it. And they just keep getting better and better, better show. I mean, the shows are great from the word go, and the shows just get better and better. I mean, this is going to be a cracker tonight, some big names on there, some big fights. Really looking forward to it.
Were you a little bit sceptical, first of all, when you heard of bare-knuckle boxing? Because when people say bare-knuckle boxing, they do make certain presumptions.
Yeah, I mean, they think bare-knuckle, and they think, bare-knuckle back in the old day, with the in the hay barns and whatnot, which still goes on a little bit today, don't get me wrong. And each to their own. And I was a little bit sceptical when I first went to one of the shows, but I was quite blown away by, the professionalism of the shows with Jim and Joe and what they bring to BKB, and what's just great. I mean, it's boxing without the gloves, basically, and obviously they got the hand wraps on, but it's boxing without these big shows that that you see with Anthony Joshua and all the rest of it. I'm not saying that they're as big and as good as them, but they're not far off for what it is. Look, we're at the O2 Arena, we've done the Echo Arena. We're taking this round, all around the country, and it's getting bigger and better. It's pay-per-view. You can have a little bet on the fights if you want to. So it's great, and it's just great to be part of it.
How high or how good do you think BKB can get? I mean, what is there sort of a limit? How high?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's a limit on it, but as as I just said earlier, you're going from strength to strength. The shows they get. I mean, the great shows from the word go, like you say. And when I say they're getting better, they're better and better. I don't mean the last one was bad. I didn't think you could top the last one, and I was saying the same before that one. We won't top this. When here we are at BK13, and my mouth's watering it. The excitement and the thrill of some of the fights that are going down, especially I'm not ashamed to say it, but Jimmy Sweeney and Sean George. What a fight that's going to be. It's looking like a cracker, and I can't wait to commentate on that one.
Okay, you've mentioned that fight now. Then I'm going to put you on the spot. I mean, who do you think is going to win that fight?
I mean, you have put me on the spot. I mean, I'll be fair. In my opinion, it's good. It's a 50-50 fight. Jimmy's a good counter puncher, but Sean George brings, especially after his last fight and that devastating power with that one punch, could take anybody out at any time. So it's got that, it's got that combination, that recipe for just a great fight. And Sean George is more of a come forward, wanting to have a tear-up type fighter. Although, to be fair, in his last fight, he went on the back foot, and that worked for him. He got the counter punch that he caught his opponent with and cleaned him out with one punch. He showed that he can fight on the back foot as well. Jimmy Sweeney likes to box, use his skills, his tricks. So it's just exciting. I can't wait for that one.
From a technical point of view, is bare-knuckle boxing any different technically to gloved boxing apart from the lack of gloves?
No, I mean, it's very similar. I mean, what I would say, I mean, it's a lot easier to commentate on, actually, because, with boxing, as much as I love the sport, there is times in the point with 12-round fights, especially, there is, because even with some of my own fights back in the day, you can't go hell for leather in the first 2, 3, 4 rounds and hope for the best. You've got 12 rounds, you have to pace yourself, and sometimes your opponent's weakness could be towards the end of the fight, whereas bare-knuckle, it's all action from the word go. And me and Tom say, sometimes we commentate, we're just getting into it, and before you know it, the fight's over, a bad cut or a knockdown, and that's the excitement that it brings, to the sport. And that's, I mean, boxing's excitement, exciting, of course it is, but everyone's looking for that knockout or whatever. The knockout is always more exciting. You get some good distance fights, don't get me wrong, but with the BKB, it's excitement all the way through. And I find with the commentary, you're not having to fill them pauses much, you know what I mean? You could just talk to it, and before you know it, the fight's over, so it's all good.
You were famous for your punching power back in the day. How do you think you would have done as a BKB boxer?
I mean, I'd have done all right. The only problem I suffered with bad hands as a boxer. I broke my hand in my fourth pro fight. So there, Joe Calzaghe, near. So, no, I mean, he was always saying he had bad hands. I had bad hands from the word go. I broke my hand in my fourth fight, fourth professional fight, and it was never the same. And I went to see a specialist. The specialist said to me, it's one of them, do you want me to, sugarcoat it or tell you the truth? And I said, well, tell me the truth. He said, well, you need to carry on as you are. There's nothing I can do about it. You can have an operation, but that doesn't guarantee that, another punch is not going to mess it up again, or you can find yourself another career. And I thought, well, I enjoy my... And it was just, grin and bear it and get on with it. So like I say, I suffered with bad hands from the word go, but at least I had the slight protection of bandages and then gloves. Whereas bare-knuckle, although you've got your wraps on, it's still pretty much bone on bone. So, I mean, either I'd have to knock him out with one punch or my hand would go within the first punch, so...
You mentioned... you mentioned Joe Calzaghe there. I mean... Whenever your name gets mentioned, people quite often mention the fight with Joe because you were still probably the closest anyone came to beat him. I mean, a lot of people actually think you did win the fight. I mean, what are your recollections on that fight now?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, we didn't like each other much. You know what I mean? We were two, great super middleweights at the time, both in our prime. And that's one thing I can take my hat off to the pair of us. We met each other in our prime. There was none of this, avoiding each other for years and all the rest of it. And then one slightly over the hill and all the rest of it. We met each other in our prime. And people think I dislike or I hate Joe Calzaghe, because of course I don't. Listen, I've got the utmost respect for Joe Calzaghe. Like I say, we fought in our prime, back in the day when you did that. When I took him to a split decision, I thought I won the fight. A lot of other people thought I won the fight. He got the nod on the night, and the only thing I can say, I just think I would have liked him to give me a little bit more respect after the fight. He put it down to a bad performance, on his behalf. And that sort of took it away from me a little bit, because I thought, at least show me the respect and say, what a great fight that I give him, and what made for such a good fight. And people are still talking about it now, nearly 20 years on, and in another 20 years, hopefully, they're still talking about it. And it's just adamant to what a great fight it actually was. It was just a shame that we couldn't get the rematch on. But Joe, if you're ever thinking about coming out of retirement, mate, that's the only fight. I get asked it all the time because, I keep myself in shape, still keep the training going. People say to me, would you ever come out of retirement? And the honest to God truth is, I could do for Joe, not because I dislike him, but it's because we got unfinished business, so that's the only fight that I could really get myself up for. But it was a great fight, and that's testament to a great fight that people still talk about it.
Why didn't the rematch happen? I mean, it was a really good fight, really exciting. It was controversial, so they had all the ingredients for a rematch. Why didn't it happen?
Because, on my side of things, I was chasing the rematch. I'm still chasing the rematch now, as you can tell. But no, it just never happened. Joe, I was told Joe wanted to go off in another direction. The money I was offered wasn't what it should have been. You know what I mean? But besides, I fought him the first time round. I can't tell you. I'm a bit embarrassed to tell you what I fought him for. But it wasn't what a lot of people did. People thought I should be like a multi-millionaire after that fight. Nowhere near. Like I say, I'm actually quite embarrassed to tell people what I actually got for that fight. But that's because I was confident. I took what I got for that fight because I thought I could beat Joe. So I can't even say I was doing it for the money, because the money wasn't that great, to be fair. The rematch, I thought I'd made my statement in the first fight. And I didn't go in guns blazing, I demand this and I demand that. It wasn't a case of that. I just thought I should be paid for what I was worth. To the promoter at the time, I thought he got more than his money's worth for that first fight. At least pay me what I'm worth for the second one. And the offer he made me wasn't the best. And, I had to turn that offer down for the wage for that fight, but I wasn't turning the fight down. Joe, I'm not saying he turned it down or avoided it. He decided to go, on another road. And I can understand why, because it was a big risk for him to fight me again, no matter what he says. Like I say, I do respect him, don't get me wrong. But, it was a big risk for him, because I was confident in the first fight. I'd have been even more confident in the second fight, especially because I was landing with the big right hand. And, Joe had a great chin, don't get me wrong, but I think I would have found it a bit clearer second time round. But like I say, it was a great fight. And, people say, you don't like... I do like him. Respect. Look what he's achieved, 46-0. Should have been 45-1. But I do respect. Look what he's achieved. He beat Roy Jones, Hopkins, Kessler. Beat some great fighters. And it's just, I don't want to put myself down here, but I was honoured to grace the ring with such a great fighter and beat him as well, but just not get the decision.
You're probably more qualified than anyone to answer this next question. Who do you think would have won between Calzaghe and Froch in your prime?
All the time. I mean, it's an hard one for me to call because, I mean, yes, I've been in the ring with both of them, but we met at different levels of our career. I met Joe in our prime, both of us in our prime. I met Froch, no excuses, he's even said it himself. He got me at 36, 37, coming towards the end of my career, bad elbow injuries and hyperextension, you know, and it was when I took the fight against Froch. I wasn't 100%, I'm not making excuses, he knows that, we spoke about it, because he said, you know, if I'd have got Robin Reid, it'd have been a totally different fight. And as I say, I got Joe in his prime. It's an hard one, it's a tough one, so I've got to go for Froch. But from what I got at the time, you know, the fight that I was involved with at the time, Froch can punch, do you know what I mean? He could punch, and he was a stiff puncher, and he's got a granite chin. He could take a punch. And people say, yeah, but Joe would have outworked him. I don't know if he'd allowed him to, Froch. I'd have probably tipped more towards Froch if I had to put money on it. But you know, it's a 50-50 fight. But Froch, if I had to put a pound on it.
I think because of the your connection with Joe Calzaghe, a lot of people forget some of the other fights in your career, especially the time when you actually won the world title out in Italy, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was in Italy against Vincenzo Nardiello for the WBC world title. And let's get it right, back in them days, you know, you're like, Italy was your Germany of now. I mean, I've experienced both, haven't I? Fighting Sven Ocker, you know, went over to Germany, won nearly every round, 9 rounds to 3. You know, it's hard to give Sven Ocker, and that's no disrespect to him. You know, I'm not saying I dislike the guy, but I dislike the establishment or what was happening around him at the time. I went over to Germany. People are saying to me, you're going to have to knock him out to beat it. Well, that's not in the rules and regulations, isn't it? You've got to knock this guy out to win. In my eyes, you know, as long as before I went over for the fight, I was confident. I looked at it as like, as long as I put on a good performance and I'll box this kid, they can't give it to him. You know, and I won 9 rounds out of 3, and they still give it to him. You know, and that's a shame, you know, and that's hard my career a little bit, you know. And I lost a bit of faith in the game after that, to be honest, you know, because I've been involved with some great fights, like you say, Joe Calzaghe, Sven Ocker, Brian McGee, Vincenzo Nardiello, Henry Wharton, second defence in my WBC. And that tarnished it a little bit, you know, the fact that, like, you know, it wasn't even close. You know, mine and Joe's fight, it was a close-ish where you could swing it either, a couple of tight rounds and whatnot. The Ocker fight was a shutout, you know, and they still give it to him. And I found that, you know, like I say, I lost a bit of faith in boxing after that.
How did the German boxing officials and the people around Otka, how did they react? I mean, I remember watching that fight in a pub, and it was the most clearly bad decision I've ever seen. I mean, how did all his team and people react to that?
You know, and the sad thing is, I mean, we did a press conference after the fight, and they were all talking about, like, he'd won it hands down. Like, you know, he had actually won it hands down, which I was surprised. I mean, no, I'm not that I thought they were going to go, yeah, you won that one, but you know what I mean? And the backhanders sorted it out or anything like that. But I was quite surprised how they actually thought he had actually won that fight. You know, when you had, like, Roger Telemer, things since passed away, he was the referee. Now, that was his first, I think, I mean, you know, I'm not too sure, but I'm sure that was his first officiating at a major level, and he was just so, I couldn't believe what he was stopping me from. You stop, kept warning me, and then when I dropped Ocker in the 6th round, you know, he went over and actually helped Ocker up, brushed his gloves and said no, knock down, and then warned me for hitting him again. And Ocker was wobbling, and I just thought, how can you not say that was a knockdown? You know, and he was like, you know, but I just had to stay in there and just keep battling till the end, and hopefully the right result would be given at the end, you know, and it wasn't, it was giving it the other way, and that's the sad side of boxing, I'm afraid.
Did you actually think at the end of the fight, were you confident that you were going to get the nod?
Yeah, because I remember the first 5 rounds, which is the clearest rounds of the fight, you know, I was going back after each round, and, you know, I was controlling the fight, but I don't think he'd even laid the glove on me. You know, I was out jabbing him, I was out catching him, apart from the referee interfering, it was all me for the first 5 rounds. I remember going back to the corner at the end of each round, and my coach Brian Hughes at the time, when I say, like, how am I doing, Brian? He said, brilliant. You know, now Brian was the type of person to tell you straight, if you know, no, that's not working, do this or do that, or you're not doing enough of whatever. He just saw me say, he said, I can't tell you to do anything else, just carry on doing what you're doing. He said, you're outboxing him, you're boxing his head off. At the end of the 5th round, my manager at the time comes running round to the corner, which this you don't need to hear when you're in the middle of a fight. He said, Rob, you're being ripped off, mate. He said, you're already 4 rounds behind, which I couldn't believe. You can see the shock in my face at the time if you watch the fight. You know, and that's not a good thing to hear when you know you're clearly winning it. I mean, I'm not, you know, we're less than halfway through the fight, and I'm getting told that I'm already being ripped off and I'm behind. You know, and then Brian's having to change the tactics. Listen, you're going to have to go out and knock this guy out. And that makes your job hard. I mean, I could punch and I could knock people out, don't get me wrong, but when you've got to go looking for it, any fighter will tell you, you know, you could be waiting all night. You know, but I still thought I'd beat him, outpointed him anyway, you know.
Another one of your achievements that gets overlooked as well was the fact you were an Olympian, you won a bronze medal in the Olympic Games.
Barcelona 1992. I'm going to do like, you know, guest speaking events. You know, I often get asked, you know, which is my favourite achievement. You know, because I've been a world champion, especially the WBC, which is one of the most prestigious, because it was the original. You know, and I've been a 3-time world champion. But what I explain to people is, with boxing and world titles, you can win them, you can lose them, and you can regain them, like I did. You know, but still that Olympic bronze medal is special to me, and it means more to all them world titles put together. Only because, you know, Olympics is usually you only get a chance to go to one Olympics or be an Olympian at one Olympics. I know, you know, you got Nicola Adams who's been to a couple, and people like that. But usually in boxing, you're normally not lucky, but you know, if you get to go to one Olympics, like Anthony Joshua, for argument's sake, you know, you go to the Olympics, you do the best you can. Normally you turn professional. You know, so that Olympic bronze medal means most to me, because like I say, you know, you represent your country in that one-off occasion. Yeah, so that means most to me.
And that, of course, was before the GB set up in Sheffield. Back in those days, I believe that the amateur boxing in Britain was very basic.
Exactly, and it was like, you know, the training was hard, don't get me wrong. You're training 4 or 5 times a day. And it was down at Crystal Palace, which was the National Sports Centre at the time. But we didn't have the funding that, you know, these guys have got today, which is great. That, you know, and I use that as an example when I'm saying when you look back, you know, before me in '88, the Seoul Olympics was Richie Woodall. You know, we were lucky to get 1 medal in the boxing, if we were lucky, do you know what I mean? Whereas now we're turning out, you know, gold, silvers in the team, you know, 2, 3 golds, silvers and bronze, you know, and that just goes to show that the funding, you know, helps out a lot. And it was, you know, I'm not saying it's unfortunate, but slightly unfortunate we didn't have that back in my day. I'm not saying, you know, it could have turned that bronze into gold, but it's just, you know, different times and whatnot. But, you know, that just goes to show that that funding is welcomed, you know, for the GB squad, because they can say it's partly a career. You know what I mean? Back in my day, you know, we got expenses. Don't get me wrong. I had to have a part-time job to make an extra little bit of dough. You know, I remember used to having to get the bus down, the National Express bus down to Crystal Palace every day. We get our expenses. You know, we always got an extra 20 or 30 quid extra, so we were buzzing off that. Whereas these guys are on a proper wage, and I think that's right. You haven't got to worry about, you know, where the next penny's from, how we're going to be able to afford to buy my kit or this or that. It's all provided for them, so it just goes to show that, like, you know, if they're provided for, they will provide with the medals.
During your professional career, was there any fights or any fighters you particularly wanted to have, apart from the rematch with Calzaghe, that didn't materialise?
Well, the Jeff Lacey fight, I mean, I don't really talk about that one that much, but, you know, as a fighter, you have your wins and your losses. No disrespect to Jeff Lacey. But he just got me at a bad time. I had a lot of trouble at the time, managerial problems. I can't go into what it was about, but managerial problems. Training hadn't gone the best. I had no sparring, like, you know, for me 2-month, 3-month camp. I don't want to start, you know, pointing the finger and blaming everybody else, but I had to bite the bullet and I had to take the rap for the result of that fight. You know, I got dropped 4 or 5 times, and it wasn't the case that I got knocked down. I got hit, and I opted to go down, you know, to take the count. But I just wasn't myself. From the word go, I wasn't myself. So I would have liked to have got Jeff Lacey. You know, plus I wouldn't say I was coming towards the end of my career, but I'd had big, long layoffs in between fights down to managerial problems. I'd have liked to have fought Jeff Lacey in my prime, you know, like when I fought Joe Calzaghe, for argument's sake, or Henry Wharton, or some of them other great fights that I was involved in. I would have liked to have got Jeff Lacey at that time. You know, because that wasn't the real Robin Reid that he got, and you know, I'm not saying from beating me, but that's what secured the Calzaghe fight and whatnot. And you know, when fair play to Joe, he done a number on him. You know what I mean? So fair play to him.
Just go back to the BKB tonight, Rob. What type of a show can the fans expect here in the O2 in London?
It's going to be a great show, and I mean, I said it earlier. You know, these shows I don't think you're going to be able to top the last one, you know, and you just keep proving myself wrong. These shows keep getting better and better. The quality of fights, you know, they've always been good, but it's the quality of fights that you've got tonight. You've got 4, 5, 6. I mean, they're all quality fights, don't get me wrong, but you've got like 4, 5, 6, 7 fights that all spring to mind as, like, you know, being good, big, cracking fights.
So good luck tonight on the commentary, Rob, and hope we get all the names right.
I know, exactly.
And maybe catch up with you again sometime soon.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Rob, brilliant. Thank you, mate. Thank you.